Yes, good morning, Chris. Hey, and today we are cooking with really a intriguing guy on his podcast a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, maybe a month ago now. But this guy is just a great guy to hang around with, and give you a little background on this. I'm going to kind of read a little bit. The guy is a marketing expert, and he's based in Glasgow. In one of my where is it? Yes, all time SEO spring training. Bogdan, he's got to get you over to SEO spring training this next year. Talk about podcasts. I
Yeah,
think
that
that
would
would
be
be
great.
great. Terry, you got to jump on this guy. He's super. Let's see. We got a few other things. Bam, Mo's Craig. Oh my God, trouble right there. Yeah. Craig is relaxing on a holiday over in Portugal. So,
Right. So
I,
he's not on his boat like usual.
yeah, I don't know how nice it is in Glasgow right now,
Oh,
but
it's hot.
I was with Craig. We do a show on Mondays, and he was like sitting out on his villa patio. It's like beautiful sunshine and breezy, and
Oh
Craig
man.
is sipping some, fancy little umbrella drink, and yeah, he was just being a real ladies' man out there. But anyway, it was fun. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Bam. As
Mention
Bob.
Muaz. Muaz. I know Muaz. He's the guy that designed the logo for Saspod.
Oh, nice. I
Graphic
like.
designer. Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Mhm.
We might have to talk with you about a little design element for the news guy over here. See what you can come up with. All right, Craig's got a question. Boo, Boggy. I like that. Can I call you Boggy?
Boggy. Yeah, actually, loads of my friends back in Romania would call me Boggy, which is really fun that Craig came up with quite a popular nickname for my name. So,
I love that, Boggy. All right, I'm gonna start calling you Boggy. So, who's the best singer, you or him?
well, based on his competition on the boat, I would give him, I would say, 10 out of 10 on the interpretation of Apologize from One Republic. Really, really good. So
Oh,
definitely watch that reel. it's
I don't
it's
know.
really fun. Yeah, so that was
I
a good
don't
one.
know. I have no idea. I am gonna pull up. Let me just see here. See if I'm looking for it. Uh, a, boom. Oh yeah, here it is. So Craig, once you come with a video, then I want to see a singing video of Craig, and then
Wow.
boom. Go check this out though, guys. Bogdan has got oh, what did I do with that? What the heck?
Nice.
I hit the wrong button. I'm gonna throw this in here. You guys could go check out Bogdan and in his X Factor
Yeah.
superstardom day. So we'll talk about this for a second. Obviously, I want to get into everything around podcasting with you,
Mhm.
but give us a story though about X Factor and this kind of pre-podcast life that you have now. But like, man, X Factor Romania, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was just like I would say a very interesting experience for me because I was like about 16, 17, something like that.
That
When
young, really?
Yeah, it's like when I decided to go, I was in the kitchen with my mom and I told her like, was we were watching X Factor and I said, I could be on that show. So maybe I should apply to it. And I applied for the auditions, and I've been to the auditions, and it just kept going from audition to audition, and I got in the final, which was quite interesting. I was very young, very inexperienced, I would say, as a person in general. Obviously, at 16, 17, you don't know much.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience for me. And then obviously after that, I tried to build a music career for myself. And I actually played in quite a few
Yeah.
bands in Romania, in Bucharest, and also after that, moving to the UK in 2016. So I stayed in Bucharest probably for 2 years or so. And then once I turned 20, I moved to the UK and followed popular music production university at Southampton Solent University, and that was a great experience for 3 years. Like, in the university kind of campus, we would organize bands and stuff like that. So I had my own solo project called Bratis. And
Yeah.
the one gig that you saw probably on YouTube at Joiners is one of the venues,
Yeah.
popular
Yeah.
venues in Southampton that I managed to play in. And obviously other gigs around Southampton, London as well, a few London gigs. But it was quite difficult to break through the music scene. It's really, really, really hard.
I would
All,
think it would be really difficult. Yeah.
it's difficult, and also, I always mention this, like, music is such a subjective matter, and it's a product that you build the
Yeah.
market for it. You don't have a market per se,
Right.
because
Right.
you are a product that nobody wants in the beginning, and you need to build a fan base for that. So it was quite difficult. And one day I told there was like one guy that came at uni and said, he had a speech about, what you should do with your career and stuff like that. And then this guy said, I managed to get to found a record label, and started getting into the music scene that way. And it's more of a
Mhm.
behind the scene thing. And I said, you know what, I could probably tap into that myself. And that was quite interesting mind shift, because I said, you know what, I don't need to be necessarily the front man, or I could be both. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
And I started like think a little bit more in two directions, and started to create my first brand called soandsign.co.uk. And this was kind of like an all audio kind of like service. I produce audiobooks, podcasts, music, mixing, uh, sound for film and sound design, and all sorts, like audio branding, all sorts of things that required my expertise as an audio producer, right, or a music producer. And then slowly I started navigating these, and I realized, like, wait a second, like, I get so many podcast clients. It's like I can just like focus only on this and build a business around that instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
started shifting towards my current business, Saspod. And yeah, I learned a lot throughout the years. I started as a freelancer, had zero money in my pockets, literally all self-funded, and bought the domain. That was the first investment. And from that investment, I managed to get more money and reinvested, and more money and reinvested, until I got to build this successful business that
Yeah.
produces podcasts for worldwide clients. So that's pretty cool.
I think it's very cool. What a great story. Just to magnify that thing about the music, breaking into the music. I remember hearing a story, but this is an old guy, Brian Adams. I don't know. He was
I
like,
love him.
I don't
Yes.
know. I think he's American. He
He's
might be
Canadian.
Canadian. There we go.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember hearing an interview with him, and he was talking about just how hard it was in working. There was this song that he had, one of his first ones. It was like the summer of '69 or something
Yeah.
like that. That it got huge, right? And he was like telling this story. I was like, listen, I barely made any money at all. I was like eating ramen noodles, just going out on tour, just trying, while that song was like, number one in the radio, and I was making anything. I'm like, wow,
That's true.
really?
And it's
Uh,
even worse now, unfortunately, with,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's so awesome in what you're doing right now, and I'm going to throw up. So here we are now. We're at Saspod, and I think what a great story. Kind of that transition going from the music industry, loving, now going into producing, and Saspod. I love this. Hey, what are you going to do? Red pill, green pill.
That's my web developers idea.
I think it's great. I mean, it's really catchy. It makes you like, what? What are you talking? What's the pills? Which one should I take? Um, as you've dug into this world of podcasting, and I know you've helped, many shows gain global recognition. What do you think separates, though, a forgettable podcast from one that takes off?
Right. So obviously, you need to have a good plan when you start a podcast. Most people go into podcasting, and if you read any blog, any article on how to start a podcast, everybody says like just go out there and do it. Right. Yeah, that's a way of doing it. I don't say it's not, it may work or not, but without a plan, almost like starting a business, without a plan, it's just not going to take off, especially if you don't put like some of the thinking
Mm,
before, like for example, what's your target audience, what are you trying to do with this podcast? Is it just like a chat show and it's just fun,
right.
or do you want to attract business leads, or do you want to grow your personal brand or your company brand? Like what's the goal, right?
Mm,
And I think this is one of the biggest factors that makes one podcast succeed and another one not succeed. And there's something called like pod fade. Like 75% of podcasts, they don't go, um they just stop after 20 episodes or so,
Yeah,
and
I was
that's
gonna say there's like a number that is like if you can get past that
mhm,
horizon of and you said 20, and I think I've even heard a little bit lower than that
yeah,
even, but if you can like get over that hurdle and get into the grind, so to speak, then you've just separated yourself from, probably 75-80% of the whole
exactly,
industry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously that's one part of it, and the quality of it, I think, matters a lot. It
Yeah.
didn't matter as much before because there were not many podcasts out there, but now, like in SEO, for example, because me and Craig we were talking about SEO and stuff. It's like what can you do to get against your competition, to be on top of everybody else, and you need to do anything possible. And if that means you need to invest money into a good camera or like a good microphone, or I don't know, some tools that you need for editing, or even a podcast production company like mine to
Yeah.
help you out with
Yeah.
that, maybe that's the way of doing it. And obviously we talk about DIY podcasts here, like indie podcasts, right? So people that just start the podcast from their own like studio, they build their own studio. That's one thing, but obviously there are podcasts out there that they are signed with networks, right? And they start with a network with a lot of money into them, and that's a totally different game, and the concept and all that. But I think this would be kind of like the biggest reasons why some podcasts are actually going and some are fading.
Mm,
So yeah,
mm. That's interesting. I know, um, I've talked with a number of people on, that friends of mine or associates that are like, yeah, I want to start a podcast, and I'm using the term podcast in a much, what I'll say, kind of in a very broad sense.
yeah,
So,
and it changed over the years as well.
yeah, exactly. So, the term podcast in my definition today is, yes, audio podcasts that you're throwing out on the various platforms, but as well as what we're doing today, doing a live stream show on YouTube or Facebook or all of
Mhm.
the various platforms. And But I know in my conversations with folks, they're always like, I don't know, how do you do it? How do you, how do you keep doing it?
Yeah, it's hard hard
And
work.
right, and how do I approach it? And what should I do the live stream? Should I just do pre-recorded stuff? Should I, it's all of these questions about,
Mhm,
and I think your answer is really, I think, very on target, which is like you've got to create a plan, approach it just like a business plan,
mhm,
and map it out and build the brand and work your plan, right?
mhm.
And Um, I will tell you, I started my first podcast, which was a kind of the OG podcast of purely audio. I only did it on
Yeah.
audio pre-recorded, and I started that in April of 20, when the pandemic hit. Because, and I did it more out of like, I really wanted to create, some more branding and opportunity for our SEO clients. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to do this podcast and we can get them some more exposure, because it was such a tumultuous time and nobody knew what the heck was going on. So I did them as pre-recorded, only on audio. I called it then Running the Bases with Small Businesses.
Hmm.
Kind of this baseball motif. I love baseball. So it was this,
Hmm.
and I did like in the middle of it, similar to your podcast, where you're asking like, hey, here's 3 questions, right?
Yep.
And shit, I should have done that with you because that was a great idea. But on that podcast, I would do like in the middle of it, I'm like, hey, here's the 7th inning stretch, and then I'd ask you some question about baseball, and we'd get back into it. Um, I kind of got a little after about 3 years. I had done it religiously every week. It was a weekly. I
Hmm.
for 3 years, and I was like, okay, I'm getting a little burned out. So I had hit the crest, but we were getting about 7 to 8,000 downloads per episode. So
Hmm.
I had some
That's
good,
pretty good
decent
numbers. Yeah.
I had some decent traction with it. Started having a few sponsorships, and but I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of this was, and then Craig, is like, dude, you should take a look. You need to go live. You need to be, get your face out there, like
Go out
really,
there.
really explode the
Yeah.
brand. I'm like, and and so, like 2 years ago, then actually 2 years this month, started this hot off the press and and I only do it live. And
I think
I
it's a great
enjoy
format.
this.
Yeah.
I like this format. For me, this is like,
It's great
I,
because you've done it. If things go out of hand sometimes, because they do, especially on
yeah,
live, it's live. So
yeah,
there's nothing we can do about it. It's raw as
yeah.
well. And yeah, I think it's a great format. And I see like there are around like 500 people watching now. So that's definitely good. Uh,
Craig, yeah.
what did you say?
Yeah,
Uh,
Craig. Yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Um, But the other thing on the audio, and there's a lot to think about it. And you were talking about production and stuff, which is absolutely right. Is on the audio side, I mean, we were spending. I don't. I'm curious on what you do, but at that time, I bet we were spending close to 8 to 10 hours of production time to do an audio
yeah.
episode. So because we would book the guest, and I had some automation built out around that. But soon as a guest booked, so say Bogdan, you would book with us, great. We had a whole funnel of communication out with you, and like, hey, how to be a good podcast guest, and blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah,
Hmm.
various kinds of things, how to
That's
prep
good.
for the show. But then I would have somebody on our team that would go, and she would spend 3 to 4 hours of just researching Bogdan, like who is Bogdan, right?
Hmm.
And then she would like prep out and do the whole show note and layout for me, so
Hmm.
that and then she and I would meet for about 30 minutes, kind of review it. And I'd kind of get a feel for who you are and how we would approach the show.
Hmm.
Then we would do the show, and I would just block out 90 minutes for it. Sometimes, a lot of times it would go less than that, but and then I'd turn it over to my audio guy who would edit it out and do the stuff. I'm like, it was crazy amount of time.
There's a lot of things that go into producing just an audio podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
There's the writing part to it. There's the recording. There's the post production of the
yeah,
recording. There's then if you want to break these recordings into different assets, right? Like uh, if you run an audio podcast, maybe an audiogram would work well. But
yes,
now on if you want to get out there, like video is the way. So definitely audio, video, and that's triples the time of
Yeah.
work as well. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of effort put into it. Obviously, artificial intelligence helps a little bit with certain things, and we do experiment with that on our side. But it takes a lot of effort. There's many moving parts that need to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
managed. That's
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
one of the things that I've seen over
Well,
the
and
years.
I love, so when I was on your show, the Pod Files,
Hmm.
um, we that was a pre-recorded, but
Hmm.
you also did the visual. You also recorded video along with it, and then I watched it on YouTube, but you have it out on all of the other platforms,
Hmm.
and you're probably going to tell me I'm shooting myself because I don't distribute the audio of my show. I don't distribute it out on
You have
any
to
of
do it.
the, yeah, but I do that, I think, for a couple of different reasons, but yes, you're right, I should. I'm being an idiot for not doing it, I suppose. But you did is such a great, you put a lot of post-production effort
Hmm.
into your shows, and I watched your video of our show, and I'm like, "God, that is so good." I'm like,
Right.
"Wow, that is so good," and I wonder, how would you approach, like, the live platform like I do
Hmm.
here,
Right. So obviously,
and then, like, go create this kinda nice
mhm.
post-production? What would you do, you know, um
Yeah,
now I'm asking kind of selfishly because
yeah, I know, but it's
soon as I
simple.
saw soon as I saw our show from
Yeah,
your on your platform, I thought, "God, I gotta get him to do some stuff for me because
yeah, yeah.
that was good."
So obviously, you need to control the post production if you can. So, for example, you can take the raw recordings from these streaming, right? Find a platform. I'm not sure if this platform that we're using right now is doing this, but you can record multi-track. So once you
Mm,
have different files, then you can have a video producer work on them, making sure that the entire brand is on point. We discussed on that in the beginning normally. Uh, you know, see your color scheme, like your fonts and everything, make sure that everything is
right.
on brand, and then get a podcast trailer for each and every episode. That's what we're doing. Like, we take snippets from the podcast that are really cool, like stuff that we said in the podcast that would engage people, and then we put it in the beginning, because obviously this is a long form content. Is not a reel, is not 60 seconds what you will
Yeah,
usually see on TikTok. So obviously you need to convince the people to listen to the show a little bit, because otherwise, just turning up, and you need to have a lot of following, in order for you to kind of like build that trust if you don't
right,
have these
right.
trailers, right? So these trailers allow people to consume what's gonna be in the entire show in like a minute, and then
Yeah,
if they're convinced, they listen to the entire thing. So that's kind of like the purpose of it. And uh, that is what we do in terms of post production,
yeah,
and I think it's key, because it looks good, and your personal branding, it's stays up.
yeah,
It could
yeah,
be that good that if you want to give it to a radio station, for example, to pick it up, or anything like that, if you treat it like TV production quality, you never know. So it could get somewhere that where you would not expect sometimes. Yeah, so that's what I would say in terms of what we do with post production. So that's what I would do with the streaming. So you stream it live, you have a live version of it, and then you
yeah,
post produce it for a targeted audience that would want to watch it after. And I've seen quite a few people do that, actually. So in a way, you could actually have more people joining the live version because they prefer the raw
right,
footage in a way, and then put the post, and then just leave the live version for the Patreons only, for example, or like for the people that are supporting you, or like or subscribe to your newsletter or something like that. So maybe you can do
right.
that. So there's all sorts of things. That's why a plan is good.
I was looking at, I just pulled up our, I'll drop this into the chat as well so folks can go and watch our uh, episode as well. I'm gonna maybe see if I can do this in a way. Only because I think you are like so great at this. I'm like, yeah. Also share audio system. I want to do that, and I need to do it. Let's see. Oh, I think I can do it this way. Right. So here is our video, and this
Would
was
you be able
our
to
show.
employ a press release to increase the visibility of a podcast?
Yes, and I will tell you exactly how.
Randy Rohde is a digital.
So you just did that thing, exactly what you were describing, like taking pieces of like the intro reel and
Mhm.
create this interest. And I think, I don't know, it probably is about a minute, maybe 90 seconds or so of this kind of intro kind of teaser. I'm like, wow, that is so good. And this is what killed me. It was like, I gotta figure that out. How can he do this with my live show? Because then I have the question, which is, so if you were doing some of the stuff like you were describing and kind of creating this kind of teaser element to put out in the front of it, if it's a live stream, like I already have this thing is streaming out on YouTube already. So do we essentially, this is what I'm always trying to figure out.
You control it the way you want. So once you streamed it, you can remove it, right?
Right.
You don't leave it publicized, and then obviously you send the files to a production team like ours, for example,
Yeah.
and they post produce the entire thing and they put it
And
out
then I
like
put it back
a
out.
release, and then it stays there for the eternity, right? So that's kind of like how I would do it. And sometimes TV productions do this as well, where they have a version that goes live, but then it's post produced a little bit because maybe some of the parts were quite slow, or it's not quite engaging as much. So it's better to just cut out the fluff and then just leave the actual takes in there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It is really is interesting. Well, go. So, folks, if you have not, let me put that. So that's the link that I have right up there is the link to the show that Bogdan and I did. And then you can, I put that in the chat. You can also just go check out his whole channel, the Saspod channel, and see it right there as well. And just go see some of the great shows that he's put together and some of the fun stuff. I have not finished listening to this show yet, The Power of Sound, with this gal that's the voiceover, and she does voiceover stuff.
Well, it's so weird because when you listen to that episode, you feel like, what the heck? The entire episode sounds like a commercial.
I know, that's funny you say that, because when I was listening to that, I'm like, this is like a whole kind of, I feel like
people are so talented, and she has an amazing voice. So when you talk to her, you feel a little bit unease because you hear this voice and it sounds professional and it sounds like really good. So she's all about audio branding and voice acting, and she actually had me on the show, and now I return her the favor to come on my show once I started it. And I think she's a wealth of knowledge on that as well. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, because because I know I have so many friends or people I know in the industry that are wrestling with this idea, or they've started, or they've kind of done this start and stop, know, and then they come back and like, oh yeah, we really need to do it. And they kind of have this spurt of commitment, and then they kind of like dribble off again. So this is kind of going to be a two-sided question a little bit. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people do when they're kind of launching a podcast, and what can you do to help them?
Right. So obviously one of, like I already mentioned, like the preparation is one of the things. Is like they just go and launch a first episode, but they don't have 3 episodes already lined up, So they launch the first episode and then, we need the next episode, and we need the next episode. And that creates obviously burnout. And that's not how a professional, like not TV, because we're not on TV here, but you need to treat it like that, right? That's not how content management works, right? It's not
Yeah.
sustainable, and you stress out your team as well to like go and find me a guest or like whatever, and you stressed out, and the entire thing is just a mess, right? So you need to have a backlog in place. That's one thing that I've seen many times. People are so like, oh, I want to put this out there, I want to put this out there, and they just fail because they don't do the preparation. Another one is they invest so much in production, right? But they don't invest in the equipment they record with, thinking that the production somehow will solve the mistakes that are happening in the recording. This is obviously not possible even in this AI world we're living. AI is just going to make a mess of it, right? I've done some experimentation with audio, for example. In that part, for example, you can use Adobe Enhance and try to restore an audio file and sound it decent, if that makes sense. But it still sounds robotic and weird, and it's not necessarily good. So that's one thing. You put thousands of pounds into the production of your podcast, but you don't invest in the equipment, thinking that it's too complicated or thinking that it just takes too much effort. And yes, it takes effort to produce something. You need to learn some of the equipment to understand how it works, because we live in this world, the creator economy, and that's what my podcast is about, where every single business is doing content marketing, literally. And that's what podcast is at the end of the day. It's a content machine. And you want to repurpose that, and you want to make your brand look good, and your customers to understand who you are and what you're all about. And if that doesn't come across because you didn't invest 600 pounds or like 1,000 pounds, let's say, into a good camera or a good microphone or whatever, it's a shame, right? So that's another thing. And other mistakes that people do is they try to do it themselves a lot. I do understand the budget for some people is not there. And if that is, you take too much workload, like let's say you want to start a video podcast, and then you realize that you need to put 30 hours of work into one episode. And that's not sustainable for somebody, because you need to run your own business, right? And why not maybe minimize the work? If you don't have the budget, make a shorter podcast, 10 minutes, audio only, maybe more effective, maybe focus it a little bit better. You still get on all these different platforms, which, it plays into the brand amplification and getting out there and all that. You still get all that benefits, but you don't need to burn yourself that much. And if you later on, you beta tested this idea and you beta test it in a way that is also good quality, then you can go and, you know what, this actually works. I actually got a sponsor for this podcast, or somebody wants to give me some funds, or like my marketing director says, you know what, go and full on this. I go and hire a good company that can help me out with the production of the podcast. And then there you go. It's happening. So yeah, those are like really broad ones, but there's so many other mistakes I've seen. So many.
Yeah, so amazing from that standpoint. I agree with you about the sound and the audio and the production of when you're actually doing that. I came across when I first started. So as I mentioned, my very first podcast, the Running the Bases, and I didn't really have any of the equipment on our first thing, and I came across a platform. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, called Auphonic. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard of this one, yeah.
So this was a very inexpensive way to like really improve poor quality audio, which is you dump your audio file into this thing, into this, and then it you can say like, how do you want it to sound or whatever, but all of a sudden it gives you this really balanced, compressed, almost radio quality kind of a sound to it, and it was cheap. I'm like, wow, that sounded great. And then we invested in some equipment, and ended up not utilizing this thing anymore. But this was a great step. So for folks that are starting out, and when you're talking about being on a budget, this was a great kind of step into helping you do something like
And
that.
it's better to use a tool like this, right?
Yeah,
And use this with, let's say, if you don't have the equipment, that's fine. We need to make a distinction between repairing something
yeah,
and improving something,
right, right,
enhancing, right? Because repairing, for example, is something that has been done wrong or hasn't been done with professional equipment.
yeah,
And there you're going to take out whatever is there and make it usable,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then there's the enhancing, where you use a quality microphone. It's already very good to start with, and you
yeah,
just put the extra, you know, uh, the extra improvement on it, and
yeah.
now it sounds really, really good. So
Yeah.
obviously,
I think the first mic that I had was the Yeti, the Snowball or the Blue Yeti,
that's
I
a
think.
perfectly great mic. But talking about mistakes, that's
Yeah,
the microphone that people are confused the most about. It's
yeah,
like loads of people are using it in the wrong way. There is like this microphone, for example, it's a top addressed mic.
yeah,
So the audio comes from here, from the top. However, if I start talking into this side, it's really like distant,
yeah,
doesn't sound good. I'm just moving my head a little bit and it's already
right.
gone.
Yeah,
So this mic is very sensitive on this side. Now that Blue Yeti microphone, if you talk into it, is designed in such a way that you think you need to talk into it on the top, when actually you
but
need
it's
to talk
completely opposite. Yes. So my
exactly.
mic, the mic I'm using, or you can't really see it here. I'll have to move the mic I'm using. This guy is
Mhm.
designed to be exactly the opposite of what yours is. Mine is
Exactly.
designed to speak at it
Side address.
directly, not on the top, but here.
Correct.
And and it's now I will say I have a better mic than this. I have a mic that's like your mic that does sound better, but this just works better in my setup here in my office the way I use it
Yep.
right now. But yeah, the mics I think are a very important piece. I eventually invested in a board called the Rodecaster Pro.
That's
Are
good.
you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I invested in that when I was doing the podcast, the audio podcast, and then I stopped doing that and I brought it into my office here so I could do the video stuff as well with it. But I use it now even, and I use it
Mhm.
on all the time. Anytime I do a Zoom call or I just run all of my audio through my
Mhm.
Rodecaster
Yeah,
because
it's
I
a good.
think it just
That's an audio interface.
yeah,
So there's like USB microphones that you can just plug in into your computer and
right,
go with it, which is fine for limited applications. It works great, and they used not to be like a standard thing. Like people will not use them. It's a recent addition to the audio equipment, USB microphones, that wasn't a thing back
yeah,
a few years ago. Let's say before COVID, or even like before that, 2015, people were not using this. You will need an audio interface with the microphone in order to run the mic. However, there's still a lot of benefits of using an audio interface like the Rodecaster. It allows you to connect multiple microphones if you want to. If you want to have an in-person podcast later on, it allows you to do that. So yeah, it's great equipment, and all this equipment that we invest in is assets that
yeah.
we use. Yeah.
You keep
So
talking. I just went on.
who came in the door?
Yeah, no, I had to go reach for this other thing because the other thing I have is one of these. Are you
Yeah, the
familiar with
Zoom.
this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zoom Pod Track.
A lot of people
And
think that the Zoom company that does the software makes
yeah,
these, but
but
no.
this thing, I bought this because when I was doing the podcast as well, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll. Well, Holly Starks and I had this idea that we were going to do interviews of SEO folks and do this thing while we're at conferences. And so we were going to like do a bunch of like pre-recorded stuff. And so I bought this Zoom pod track to take with me then
Mhm.
because it's small, right? It's
Yeah,
like a,
lightweight.
um, and, but yeah, I think I used this thing like 3 times. And so now it sits in a drawer. In case anybody's interested, maybe I might part with it. But this is like, I don't remember what this thing cost me actually, maybe $100. I don't know. But it is another inexpensive audio interface, and you can dial in and get some compression, get some balance on
Yeah.
your audio. But that really makes, and I think you had said it earlier, I think, in that, I think the sound quality plays a much greater role today
Hmm.
than it did, a few years back.
Yeah.
I think people accepted it, it was kind of new, but now, people want to hear good. I think they want to hear a good audio quality. I think
Yeah.
it's
I'm just
important.
gonna give you an example of that. Why is that important? So Craig knows already that, probably you know as well, but I'm a new driver, right? So I got my
I
driving
didn't know
license
that.
a few months ago, right? So I'm a new driver and I just started listening to radio and in the car, and I don't feel like I'm very distracted anymore about that. So I enjoy driving. I'm not scared of what's happening on the road anymore. So,
Yeah,
but to me, if I listen to a podcast where I struggle to hear what they are saying, right? Because sometimes, to be honest, I listen to podcasts only when I'm passive listening. I'm
mm,
doing something at the same time. Usually, I would not, very rarely, when I would go and stay and watch a podcast or something like that. I would maybe do sometimes if I see the actual title really inspires me to watch it. But most of the time, I do something at the same time. I know, man. And uh, make sure that you're not around blend time.
yeah, really be off the streets.
Yeah. So yeah. So uh, and in a few instances, I was driving and I was struggling to hear what they're saying, and I was just like tuned out from it immediately. Especially since there's noise around as well. If the
Yeah,
audio is not good enough, obviously, the sound is not going to cut through, and you don't know, because in music production, for example, we would test audio tracks on multiple speakers to make sure that it translates well, right? From
ah,
one Bluetooth speaker to monitors to
right,
phones, and see if it translates well. If your audio is weak, it will not translate well on multiple platforms, and you don't know that, and you don't know how many people actually you disappoint with your podcast because your audio is not good enough.
yeah,
So that's one thing, and that's the authority as well, right? When you sound good, when you sound close and you sound confident, it's totally different than you would sound really distant, and that's really
or
not gonna
tinny,
work.
or yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it just makes you small, and that's
yeah,
that's it's
yeah,
a part of branding, and that's audio branding per se, right? So
right,
that's what it does. And also video part is also a good thing. The more clean your audio looks, the more
yeah,
depth of field you have and clear background. That really helps out with appearing and being an authority in your space, and you know
right,
what you're doing, right? So that's really, really cool.
yeah, yeah. I think you're hitting it all cylinders right there to keep the driving car motif going. I think, yeah, the audio, the visual right now in today's world, because it's seemingly so accessible to do a good audio and visual.
Mm,
I always apologize. Sorry, folks, this is what I get. And, but visually you can create a decent kind of thing, like doing the reel, like you did an intro reel
mhm.
on our show. I don't know if you do that for I think you must
Every
do it.
episode.
Yeah, every episode you do something unique. There's another guy, I don't know if you've seen, I think he does a really exceptional job as well. Paul Dre, he has a show called the SEO show, the SEO video show,
Hmm.
on YouTube, and he does a great production with his show as well. Similar to you, like a unique real intro for every guest as he does it. And but it inspired me. So, I had my team like, hey, put together at least an intro reel that
Hmm.
I can always spin, because I think it adds, it's an element that makes it just elevates it, right? It
Yep.
just adds a whole, like, wow, that's kind of, what was that? Kind
Yeah,
of cool.
that's pretty
Um,
cool.
yeah. So in thinking about your services and what you do, so what are some of the things that you would do for it, for maybe somebody that's got a podcast right now? I don't want to say they're struggling with it, but maybe
Mhm,
they've got it and they've been kind of pushing it out there for the last few months. What is it that you would do? What would be your approach with them, and
mhm,
what kind of things can you do specifically to kind of elevate their game?
mhm. So assuming that production is good, right? Because we need to go across these, right? Assuming that everything is good, right? And podcast looks great, it sounds good. Outlining the episodes, making sure that you actually create a story on the episode, right?
Mhm.
That's also key part. For some of my clients, I provide outlining services. So we go and research, let's say, like the way you would do with your press releases, you research the story behind that person and see how can you frame that story so we create an engaging episode, and you create an outline on that. And it's all about the messaging, obviously video, audio quality, all that puts the ice on the cake. But uh, what about the messaging on that? So we could do some of that preparation before each and every episode, outlining and trying to hit those sensitive topics or those interesting topics, because somebody has a great story and could stay on a podcast for 24 hours, right? You could start from the beginning to the end. But let's say you get like a celebrity on your podcast.
Right.
What would you do? Would you like just ask him random questions? You would definitely go and research the guy. You know, Craig knows that better than everyone, because he got then Banna, I think, on his show, and
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and he basically had to research and get all these like questions sorted and everything, because you have just an hour of his time, and you want to hit every single topic that you're interested in and your audience is interested in, because you can talk about his childhood, but maybe that's not something that people are interested in, and how you frame that, right? So storytelling. And then assuming that also that's good, for example, what you can do is go brand amplification, and content repurposing. We start with that, right? So you
Right.
want to write a blog article for each and every episode. If you don't do that, you're missing out. That's free content, literally, and it's easy to do. So go and transcribe your episode, put that episode into an AI tool, get a few ideas there, and then go and start writing, go and start manipulating the article, making sure that and probably you've got loads of SEO viewers here on the show, but
Right,
the
right,
power of
right.
making sure that you have the right keywords, the right targeting of that keyword, and the volume and difficulty of the keyword, and all that, and make sure that you treat that post like a normal post and make sure that it ranks, right? If that article itself ranks, people go on that article, you see the YouTube embed in there, you go and click on that episode, there's a supporting material for it as well, the text. That's all about brand amplification, right? Which we are all vouching for, and I actually learned a lot from Craig myself, which is really good. And then obviously what we also want to do is repurpose the content on social media. So
Right.
have reels, create as many reels as possible. Now, you don't want to bore your audience with too many reels of the same episode. If you want, put 3 after the episode is released, and keep some of those for later on in the year. You can
Mm.
repurpose even more, and have different types of repurposing. So it doesn't need to be like 60 seconds, all the reels. You can have a few that are like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Some platforms accept only 60 seconds, some platforms are accepting 3 minutes or whatever. You need to
Right,
do a
right.
little bit of research on that, and do that, and be predictable as well. So like you are predictable with this show. We know that every Wednesday it's happening, right?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Every Tuesday is happening. I'm already in the future, but yeah, my show is every Wednesday. That's why. So so every Tuesday is happening, and that, and people are tuning in because they know that that's happening. And if you provide value every single time, they're gonna come back. Right. So repurposing, other things you might want to do. So we talked about reels, we talked about articles.
Right.
Um,
Right.
we we want to maybe spice up things a little bit. So don't keep it the same old show. You can have it. For example, my show runs every 2 weeks. The reason why I do every 2 weeks is because there's these are my resources. Most of my resources are spent on my clients because
Right.
otherwise I would do it on a weekly basis. But my video producers, they need to take care of my clients and everything. And I said 2 weeks for me is manageable for now, and it's enough for me to run it without burning out. But what you can do is, once you have an audience, once you start having a community, you can incorporate certain things in your show. Like, for example, what you do, we have a chat here, we have a few people that are joining and they have questions. That's pretty cool. With live, it's easy, but you can do that even if it's not live. You can have people submit stories themselves. I have one of my clients, she's on the podcast. I think it's fine to mention it because it's a generic podcast. It's a psychic story, it's called, where she talks about supernatural stuff and things like that. And there's a huge community that is listening to this podcast, and they submit stories every single week, and then we put those stories in the podcast, and people enjoy those stories. So basically, you have your audience create the content for you, which is really fun, right? So and then sound design, you can add some sound design in the background. So that's called immersive audio. You can make it even more interesting. So there's so many things that we can do to elevate it, right? So that's pretty interesting.
Nice. So your show, we saw it, the pod files. You have a lot of different audience and guests that come on there. Can you share a standout lesson or moment from one of your interviews on the pod files?
Well, I need to mention Craig. He was the first guest I had on the show, because he actually took a leap of faith to come into my studio, and probably he mentioned my studio quite a few times on the lives, because he's always keeps saying like, "Man, I went into this guy's studio and I said, what the heck?" And and literally, when you come in my studio, you're just gonna feel like, what the heck is this? Is like a residential area, like where I'm gonna have my
Yeah, I know. Craig shared. I'm in a group with Craig, and he shared. This is like a year ago or so, maybe, I don't know. And he's like, "Oh my god, I went into this thing. I wasn't quite sure." The guy, like, "Yeah, come to my house," and then we walk into his back of his house, and he's got this. And then he was like, I couldn't fucking believe how much equipment he invested in this thing. This is amazing back there. I thought I was walking into this, $1 million studio. It was amazing. And yeah, he was very impressed.
Yeah, but one thing that I learned from him as a podcast guest, right, was this thing of like making sure that you try to make the most of every opportunity you have, right? So, for example, I had my own knowledge panel already, but I wasn't doing anything with it, right? Which, not because I was not interested in doing anything with it, but you never know. You don't know what you don't know most of the time. So you need people from different industries to show you a few things, because we are working in like a holistic business most of the time. So sometimes SEO people are dealing with podcasts a lot. For example, for backlink building, right? So you do that. But sometimes we podcasters, we also work a little bit in the SEO space with writing an article for our clients. Press release guys, PR experts. They also do some of the SEO, and SEO experts, they do some of the writing and so on. So there's like, you need to meet people like these. So they open your eyes on what you're doing good and what you're doing bad. And that's what I like. That's one of the key things I got from my show, was meeting people like you, for example, or like Craig, or like some of my other guests, which I kept in touch with. And sometimes when you have a podcast, and it could if your podcast has a decent following and is not growing but is stagnating, but there's a community there listening to you,
Yeah.
it's an asset to your business.
Yeah.
So it's a place where you can invite other people to come to your show and imagine it like a fun place in your business. So you can go and approach one of the CEOs or like some important guy and say, you could either have him go on the boat like Craig would do probably, come on the lock with me and let's discuss some business, or you could invite them to your podcast studio and have a discussion there, and then record a podcast in the process as well. So that's one of the things that podcasting can do for you. It's networking as well. A lot of people don't think about it. And when I design a podcast for my clients, I always have two angles to it. One is the audience, who is listening to this podcast, and could the audience buy into a product or a service or create a community or do something with that? And then the second angle is like the people that we invite on the show. Can we partner with them? Can we, start exchanging information? Can we create some sort of like community, or some sort of exchange?
Right.
Sometimes you invite someone on the show, like you, for example, right? You invited me on your show. I didn't ask for it. You wanted me on the show, which is great. So that's kind of like how podcasting can create so many opportunities around your life, and it's really a good tool for everything when it comes to personal branding, business branding, and everything. So it's really cool.
Yeah. I really enjoyed like this, the hour and the time that we do this. I really have, I get a great enjoyment. I'm naturally inquisitive. So when I have guests on, I'm like you, as an example, I love to dig into the topic and like really try to learn, because I find it is like, it helps me. And it's one of the ways that I continue to do the show is because I just get engaged with it, right? I find it as a learning experience. And I'm always fascinated by the guests and their experiences that they bring into the show. So I think it's, there's a ton of value that you can get out of this. I was going to ask you, you got this great studio. What do you enjoy? What do you enjoy more? Having people come and do a live recording, a live session with you in your studio, or doing the pre-recorded?
Yeah, so I like having people in my studio and record locally. I think that's powerful, because you can control everything from the image to the audio. So there's no question about internet connection, or maybe the gas side is not quite optimized. So you're not in that awkward moment of like, can you put this microphone a bit to the left and like give directions? Because I sometimes do that. If some guest doesn't come prepared, I would just say like, we're gonna spend half an hour sorting out your equipment, man, because this is not good.
Right.
Free coaching from me. Let's start with that.
Well, and the control issue is so. As an example, I had one of these things happen. You never know when some of this stuff goes sideways. Sometimes we were doing the live stream last week and had a great guest on. I love this guy, Ted Kabitis, and about, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes into it, he loses power at he was in his basement. It was early. He lives on the West Coast. So we record, we do the show 10 o'clock my time. It was 7 in the morning his time. He was down in his basement doing we're doing the show. And then I don't know what happened. All of a sudden they lost power. His whole neighborhood lost power. And so he was just gone.
That happens. It happens even at big productions. There is sometimes there's like a backup of some sort, but if you lose power for just a split second, the entire equipment goes shut. Right? That's definitely not ideal. It happened to not on a podcast, but even on stage. Right? We were on stage. I was playing at a wedding with a band, and then just the entire stage went off. during mid performance, and what are you gonna do? Right? So it happens all the time. You cannot control it. You can control some parts of it, but not everything. So it is
Mhm.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you always try to at least create some backup, right? When I was doing just the audio podcast, I was using the Roadcaster to capture the audio. But then I would also I did it via Zoom if the guests were out and remote or whatever. So I did it via Zoom, and I would
I
also
did.
use the Zoom
Yeah.
to capture the audio there just in case. Something happened with the Roadcaster, and a couple of times I lost the audio on the Roadcaster, but I had the backup on the Zoom recording, so I could pull it
Mhm.
from there and
Yeah.
keep doing all this stuff. What is Craig? Please tell me you kept singing in the dark.
Oh yes. Everybody like with
Oh, man.
candles and
So good. So good. Dude, Bogdan, I know. So we're at our hour. Man, I appreciate you being on the show. It's so great. You can, I'm going to flip it out here again. You can connect with Bogdan, go over here to Saspod. He's got his whole uh, service offerings, everything. You can connect with him over there. You want to be on his show, reach out to him over on Saspod and see if you can book something. You can also go check him out on any of the podcasting platforms. He's got his audio there. I love the YouTube platform because he does such a great job on the post-production of the video stuff that he does. So go check him out over there as well. Follow him, like him, subscribe to him. The guy is great. The links are in our chat here. I think also I have them over on the YouTube stream as well, so you can go pick them up. Bogdan, so great to talk with you, man. I love it. I love it. I could talk with you about equipment and stuff and
thank
all
you,
of
Randy.
the production stuff forever. But how's your young boy? I know the last time we were on together on your show, we talked about family a
The
little bit.
kids,
And
yeah.
I know you got a young one there keeping you busy.
Probably sleeping or probably uh crawling somewhere. Is like is at that stage crawling everywhere
Oh
and
man,
touching every single thing. Like
yeah,
there's no corner in this house that he hasn't touched already.
yeah.
So he's really sweet, and it's probably one of the biggest events in my life ever. Like
Oh,
having a baby
absolutely,
is like
absolutely.
it's I didn't know that it's going to be so rewarding in so many ways, but also very, very hard. It's
Oh,
not
very
easy stuff.
hard. Completely life changing. My wife and I we don't talk about it so much now, but in the early days, we had like, oh, that was before kids. We had that life before kids. Then when you start having kids, your whole world goes upside down. And once they start moving, so like your young guy, but now that he's moving, that's a whole nother ball game at that point.
Yep.
Because then you're like on him, right? You're like
Yeah,
playing
he
basketball. You're
bumped
like,
their
okay, one on
heads,
one.
and it's really like you need to make sure that they don't do anything crazy to
Oh,
injure themselves or anything like that. So you have to be there with them all the time. Luckily, my partner, she's always on the lookout, and she's like taking care of him a lot more
yeah.
than I do. But luckily, as you may know, I'm working from my own garage studio near my house. So if anything pops up, I'm here
You
to
can be
support.
there.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So that's good, and I think that's the future as well.
yeah,
People working online don't necessarily need a big office in
yeah.
the city center of Glasgow necessarily to run my business. So I think you can make an empire from your bedroom if you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you being on the show. So great to talk with you, and only wish the best success for you all the way through. All right, and
Amazing, thank
folks,
you.
next week we got on the show Nathan Gotch, just a renowned SEO. So you want to grab him and hear everything. So join us next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Like, follow, subscribe so you get a notification when we go live, all of that fun stuff. Also, we talked about Craig, but Craig Campbell, Holly Starks, and I, we do a live show every Monday at noon Eastern time. I don't know what that is, Glasgow time, but I think 5 o'clock Glasgow time, I think, maybe. What do you think?
It's 4 here now.
It's 4 there now. So, okay. Yeah.
So probably
So
I
at
joined.
noon, what is that, 6 o'clock your time, Glasgow time then?
Now it's 4 p.m. here. So 1 hour ago when I joined was 3.
Oh, okay. So 4 p.m. at 11. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So anyway, join us on any of those shows. And again, Bogdan, so great to talk with you. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys.